It's been quite a while since we last spoke on this channel about Palantir and the UK's National Health Service, the NHS. Of course, back in November last year, after what felt like a very, very long waiting time, we got the news that Palantir had been chosen to be the supplier of the FDP, the Federated Data Platform, supplier to the NHS. We then learned that 4 other companies were going to be supporting Palantir in actually doing this, but either way, this was a massive, massive catalyst that Palantir ticked off. Anyway, there was lots of excitement within the community back then, but since then it has been a little bit quiet on the old NHS front. And here in the UK, since this deal went through, I've not really heard too much either. I've heard about some protests happening, with the motive that the NHS is supporting a company that supports genocide and things like that. And I also know that the NHS rolled out a new system to help handle data and improve efficiencies. But I don't think that new system is really related to the FDP. It seems to be a completely separate initiative. Anyway, I've recently seen this article. So this was published by the Digital Health on the 19th of June 2024, so relatively recently. And it's titled, Wes Streeting Slams Glacial Pace of FDP Adoption. Shadow Health Secretary Wes Streeting has criticised the glacial pace of adoption of the NHS Federated Data Platform, the FDP, and has suggested that Labour would deliver a more effective culture of innovation. So Labour is one of the main political parties here. It is a party that sits more on the left-hand side, just in case you're watching this from America. Opposing Labour, we have the Conservatives, which are more on the right-hand side, but a lot of people say that the Conservatives have now become more central, if not a little bit left. And then we have the Reform Party coming up to be the right-hand party. There are some others as well, but just to give you some context there. Speaking at an event hosted by the Medical Journalists Association on the 17th of June, he said that there was benefit in doing things more centrally in terms of procurement and cited the FDP rollout as a very good example of what happens when you are too permissive. NHS England awarded a £330 million contract to operate the FDP to US data analytics giant Palantir in November 2023, with a further contract awarded to KPMG in March 2024 to promote the adoption. There are 44 pilot sites planned to transition to the local instances of the platform before July this year. That's really soon, so we'll have to keep an eye on that. With the intention of enabling NHS organisations to integrate operational data from separate systems into one secure environment. This is what the FDP is about, and this is what Palantir are so good at doing. Referring to the FDP, Streeting said, I think the pace of adoption is pretty glacial if I'm honest, so he's thinking that it's really slow. For something that is costing a significant amount of taxpayers' money. We could get into a rabbit hole about where UK taxpayers' money is actually going to and whether this is a better use of that money or not. Different video. And is of vital national strategic importance as a project. Of course, the NHS is one of the most important things in the UK. And again, I don't want to get too political, but honestly, it's a mess and there's many things that are causing it to be a mess that isn't just a slow adoption, but we'll talk about that. I've been pretty stunned by when I've spoken to trusts about why the take-up isn't as good as it could be. I think this is very narrow-minded, actually. He said, we'll carry on. He added that it was fair enough if NHS trusts had legacy systems that needed to be updated before they could adopt the FDP. Yeah, exactly. But when I've heard people say, I'm not sure about Palantir, or I'm not sure that the NHS has a really good track record of this sort of project, I'm sorry, but that doesn't wash with me. There's been a national decision taken with significant investment of public money. This is of vital importance to patients. Go further, faster, he said. He added that the NHS needs a more effective culture of innovation around data. I mean, the UK needs a more effective culture of innovation, honestly. Patients ultimately care about 2 things. Is my data being held securely? Oh, I went all west there. I went all western on you there. And is it being used ethically? Yeah, this was the whole uproar against Palantir about them stealing and viewing data, which isn't the case, but we've spoken about that. The awarding of the FDP contract to Palantir, yeah, here we go. It caused a lot of issues. In February 2024, the Good Law Project, we've spoken about them before, announced that it had taken legal action over the heavily redacted contract. Yeah, we've spoken about that. Speaking about the importance of the integrated healthcare systems, Streeting said that patients were surprised if they went to an emergency department to find that the people treating them didn't have a full account of their patient record. Yeah, this is the problem. This has literally happened to a family member. A family member went to an appointment, one of my family members, expecting them to have certain information, that she'd been waiting for this appointment for a long time. Turns up, they said, oh, sorry, we don't have the scans. We can't see the information on the system. You're going to have to go and get rescanned. It's those sort of problems that are infested into the NHS at this point that cause so many knock-on issues with delays and whatnot. That's the potential here in terms of data. It's making sure that the patients get the very best personalised care. Streeting also referenced plans in the Labour manifesto to transform the NHS app, which he said should be able to alert patients with type O blood type to help with shortages caused by the cyber attack in June. That's interesting, actually. I have the blood type that's a universal donor, O negative, and I literally last week, I went and donated blood because I got a notification saying they were very low because of this cyber attack. And but that doesn't really matter to this story. Not trusting patients with basic information backfires on the NHS. The app should not only be able to provide this information, but it should be pinging patients with relevant blood types, inviting them to come forward. It seems like we're getting a little bit away from the actual how actually helpful the FDP can be for the NHS. So let's not think about the NHS app and whether Labour or Conservatives or any other party are leading the country. Let's just think about what's being said here, that the FDP seems to be, the adoption seems to be very, very slow, and maybe that's Palantir's fault. Well, number one, the complexity of this implementation is extremely large. This only went through November last year. They will be working on this already, but maybe we're not seeing it because it's so difficult to implement. You've got to think about this. The NHS is a legacy organisation and it has legacy systems. Many, many old systems, old processes and old infrastructure, and that is not going to be an overnight task. So ensuring compatibility and seamless integration across these varied systems that are widespread among the NHS is going to take a lot of time, and it's going to take a lot of planning in order to not actually disrupt patient care whilst it's happening. And of course, there will need to be rigorous testing that happens, and it spoke about the pilot schemes as well, to ensure that data security, data privacy is held to the highest level. So I don't completely agree with this article, but I've said this before, the most important thing is that the NHS changes for the better, because patients are suffering for many reasons, and data complexity and how data is actually handled is one of those reasons. But do let me know your thoughts on that in the comments below.